3 spine-chilling true stories of terrifying alone nights. Unexplained encounters exposed. Jenna trudged through the quiet streets of Maplewood, her soul weary and bone-deep tired after a grueling night shift at the hospital. This wasn't just a job for her. It was a lifeline for her 3 little ones, Sam, Lily, and Max. As she entered her home, ready for a moment of peace, she prayed for the comforts of normalcy to wrap around her like an old blanket. The smell of leftover mac and cheese lingered in the air, clinging with familiarity. She poured herself a lukewarm cup of coffee and sank onto the worn couch, the TV flickering to life with the same old reruns. Then the silence pressed in. It felt heavier than just the absence of noise. It was unnaturally still. The clock on the wall ticked louder, echoing in her ears like a sinister drumbeat. She dismissed it, convincing herself it was just the remnants of everyday chaos, neighbors returning from work, kids laughing, families settling in. But then the noises started. Scratches and rustles echoed outside her window, sending a spike of adrenaline racing through her veins. At first, she told herself it was just the wind playing tricks. But each faint whisper that slipped into her living room soft and ghostly knot her stomach into tight, anxious knots. Memories of a man who vanished last fall clawed at her mind. Jenna had watched the police in their sterile uniforms talk about the case. The grimness in their voices left a bitter taste of dread. She had hoped those things only lived in urban legends meant to scare children into behaving. Yet, as darkness enveloped her home, the chilling sense of reality crept in. Just then, Sam appeared, his innocent brown eyes wide and searching. "Mom," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "There's a friendly man who watches us from the trees." Fear pooled in Jenna's stomach. What kind of man hides in the shadows of their backyard? Anger and protectiveness flared through her. Sam was just a child, but those words sent sirens blaring in her mind. Could she trust anyone? Did anyone even care? The following evening, with the sun sinking and the shadows extending, Jenna clenched her fists, gathering the courage to face the unknown. She stepped into the woods, which loomed like a dark fortress beyond their backyard. The air was thick with unsettling myths come to life. Following a crumbling path, she stumbled upon an old, abandoned school, memories crammed into its peeling walls. She felt drawn to it but was dragged back by a fear that curdled in her veins. As she pushed through the threshold, the bitter air washed over her, whispering warnings. Shadows flickered, every rustle echoing like a warning siren. Her instincts screamed to leave, but she pushed deeper, driven by a desperate need to protect her children. Just then, flickers of movement caught her eye. A whisper rushed past her ear, chilling and velvety, causing dread to wrap around her heart. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Jenna's pulse raced, knowing she was dangerously close to the dark truth. The whispers grew when she felt its presence wrapped itself around her family, drawing them into a sinister embrace. And then she saw him, one of the very neighbors she'd exchanged pleasantries with, a father who always waved on his way to his manicured lawn. The realization hit her like a cold slap. This man she trusted was tangled in the horrors stalking her community. Everything she thought was safe was now a murky haze of lies and shadows. With fear gripping her throat, she knew she had to escape, before the darkness tightened its hold, consuming her whole family. Jenna's heart raced as she scrambled backward, stumbling over debris inside the dilapidated school. The old wooden floor creaked ominously beneath her weight. Each sound felt amplified, as if the building itself was alive, conspiring with the shadows. She needed to get out fast. As she turned, the whispers intensified. They echoed off the crumbling walls, weaving into a chaotic symphony that drowned out her thoughts. The air became thick, suffocating, almost alive with a dreadful energy that clawed at her sanity. A part of her wanted to believe it was all in her head, but the flicker of movement in the corner of her eye shattered that illusion. Jenna's breath hitched. The man, her neighbor, moved closer, stepping out of the darkness like he belonged there. His smile was twisted, unsettling, a grim display of teeth that did not reach his eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low and smooth, almost coaxing. "This place isn't for the faint of heart." Desperation surged through her as she glanced toward the door, her heartbeat drowning out the ominous murmurs that wrapped around her. "What do you want?" she forced out, trying to keep her voice steady, but it trembled like a child's. His smile widened. "Oh, I'm just here to help, but you don't need a savior, do you?" He leaned in too close, invading the air around her with a creeping sense of dread. Jenna felt sick, panic rising as she considered the possibility that he was just as monstrous as the stories whispered in the dark around town. She pivoted toward the exit, but he moved with alarming speed, blocking her path. Every sinew in her body screamed to run, but fear had paralyzed her. The door loomed just beyond him, beckoning her to escape. Anger flared within her, coiling tightly around her desperation. "Stay away from my kids," she shouted, her voice rising, piercing the silence that had thickened around them. Too late, she realized how futile it sounded against the oppressive shadows. "Your kids are safe for now," he replied, his tone almost sing-song. "But the truth is, fear has a way of revealing what hides in the dark." With sheer instinct, Jenna broke free from her frozen grip and darted to the side, racing for the door. She needed to reach her children and shield them from whatever twisted intentions this man had. Just as she reached the threshold, a hand shot out, grabbing her shoulder with a grip like iron. She screamed. The chill of his fingers seeped through her clothes, biting against her skin. She twisted violently, breaking free and flinging herself out into the night, breathless. The night was silent now, her heart hammering in her chest as she sprinted toward home. She could almost feel his presence behind her, dark and relentless, chasing her as the old trees loomed overhead. With each frantic step, she felt an icy dread wash over her. Had she truly escaped? As she burst into her living room, she locked the door behind her, panting heavily. The comforting scent of the mac and cheese still lingered, but now it was tainted with fear. She rushed to check on Sam, Lily, and Max, finding them peacefully asleep, blissfully unaware of the lurking terror that threatened their sanctuary. But Jenna couldn't shake the feeling, a nagging suspicion clawing at her mind. Why had he let her go? Suddenly, a soft tap came from the window, steady and persistent. Jenna froze, heart pounding anew. Choosing to ignore it was no longer an option. She crept toward the sound, each step heavy with trepidation. Pulling back the curtain, she gasped. Outside, illuminated by a solitary streetlight, dozens of children stood frozen, staring directly at her with wide, blank eyes. They were her kids' friends, the ones she hadn't seen for days. Frozen in fear, Jenna felt ice grip her heart. What had happened? It was then that she noticed one of the children, a small, familiar form pushing through the rest, head cocked slightly to the side, their lips moving soundlessly. And then it hit her like a freight train. Sam had said there was a friendly man watching them. What had that man done? Something in her gut screamed that she needed answers, and fast. She turned from the window, feeling the chilling air close in around her. The cozy haven of her home now felt like a cage, and the line between safety and horror blurred dangerously. As shadows lurked in every corner, Jenna understood one thing. The night was far from over. What had started as a desperate attempt to protect her children had taken a turn into darkness she never expected. But still she sensed something worse might come, something that slumbered in the fear and whispered through the dark that enveloped her. What else was hiding in the depths of Maplewood? Jenna's mind raced as she paced the living room, the shadows around her growing longer, darker. The children outside still stood stock still, their eyes boring into her, capturing her with a paralyzing dread. She could almost hear the whispers climb back in her ears, skittering through the silence of her home. "What are you doing?" she gasped, but the children didn't answer. Their faces were pale, ghostly in the moonlight, the kind of pale that didn't make sense for living beings. They looked as if they belonged in the hollowed hallways of that cursed school instead of her peaceful neighborhood. Her heart thudded in her chest. She needed to be brave. She needed to protect her kids. But standing alone was no easy feat when something beyond comprehension lurked just outside. Jenna's legs felt weak as she faced the possibility that those whispers weren't just in her head. Steeling herself, she glanced back at her kids. Sam, sweet and innocent, asleep in his fort. Lily, the dreamer, lost in a world of unicorns. And little Max, always amused by the tiniest things. The view of their peaceful forms bolstered her courage. But the sight of the other children watching so many of them spun dread around her. Moving slowly, she crept toward the door, hoping against hope they hadn't noticed her presence just yet. Maybe they were victims too. Maybe they didn't want to be here any more than she did. Yet deep down, she couldn't shake the chill of suspicion. Was that man outside somehow connected? What had happened to their souls? She knew she had to unlock that mystery. But first she needed to know what she was facing. She could not allow fear to squeeze the life from her. Without conscious thought, she picked up a nearby kitchen knife, its metal cold and heavy in her grip. It wasn't much, but it let her feel a little less vulnerable. With each passing moment, the children's faces grew clearer and more haunting. Their silhouettes edged closer to the house, limbs too rigid, eyes too unyielding. When she reached the door, hesitant but resolute, the whispering grew louder, echoing her own mounting fear. Upon pulling the door ajar, she was met with a collective intake of breath from outside, an eerie synchronization that sent chills racing down her spine. "Guys?" she called, her voice shaky yet firm. "What's wrong with you? Why are you here?" The children remained silent, their lips still moving wordlessly, a macabre mimicry of life as the whispers rose up, now distinct words laced with malice. Join us, join us." Jenna slammed the door shut, heart racing, the knife trembling in her hand. What did that mean? She was losing her mind, wasn't she? She needed to be stronger. She needed to protect her kids. Thinking of her own, she glanced back into the cozy haven, but it now felt hollow. Was it safe behind that wall, or had something sinister entered while she was busy being terrified? A soft thump came from the kitchen. Jenna's breath hitched anew, slicing through the silence. Quick footsteps echoed, almost too light and too quiet to belong to anyone alive. Her pulse quickened. Was that the man, or something worse? The kitchen door slowly began to creak open, and Jenna held her breath. Then came a familiar laugh, eerie and warm. "Mommy!" It was Sam. Relief and dread collided in her chest as she rushed into the kitchen, knife raised. The shadows loomed larger, and the light flickered overhead. Had anything really changed? As she entered, she saw not just Sam, but her other children too, eyes wide. They stood there, tethered in place by the grip of something invisible. And behind them, the dark shape of a figure loomed, his smile stretching impossibly wide as he stepped into the light. "Welcome back," he said, the familiar voice dripping with mockery. "I'm glad you decided to join us." Jenna's heart sank. What had truly become of her children? In the depths of her mind, a chilling thought suffocated her. They were never alone, not anymore. As the shadows danced around them, the whispers began again. Join us, but how? What did that even mean? Jenna felt the room tighten around her, resonating with the haunting tune. Something was about to break free. The door burst open behind her, and with it came a rancid rush of wind, as if something horrific was finally ready to show itself. Will Jenna uncover the truth before it's too late? The figure stepped closer, its grin expanding even further, revealing teeth that glinted like shattered glass. It leaned into the light, and Jenna could see now that it wasn't just a man, it was a monstrous reflection of the familiar. A twisted image of someone she once loved, its eyes hollow and dark, devoid of the warmth they had once held. "Mommy!" Sam called again, yet his voice sounded wrong, laden with echoes. "Stay back!" Jenna shouted, brandishing the knife. though her trembling fingers questioned her resolve. The shadow moved languidly, almost lazily, as if it took sick pleasure in Jenna's fright. "Don't be afraid. They're just playing," it said, gesturing toward her children who stood frozen like dolls. Their gazes drifted from the shadow to Jenna, vacant yet pleading. A leg of fear tightened around her throat. "What have you done to them? Where is my family? Join us, Mommy," the shadow sang, its voice slithering deeper into her mind. "They've never been alone. We've made them part of something special." The children stood unnaturally still, faces brightened by the glow of the figure's dark joy. Each moment suspended, Jenna's heart thundered louder, hammering against the walls of her chest. The whispers rose again, a cruel chorus surrounding her. "Join us." What was that bitter thrill, a beckoning from the void? Jenna shook her head violently, trying to rip away the clutches of the otherworldly chant. Her kids were here, yet they felt so far lost behind a veil she couldn't penetrate. Fear morphed into a desperate resolve, greener than the abyss before her. "Sam, Lily, Max," she cried, her voice a frantic lurch, trying to pull them back from the brink. "You have to listen to me." Sam tilted his head, that disturbing smile echoing the stranger's. "We like it here," he murmured. "No, this is not a game." She surged forward, knife poised as the dread filled the air, swirling like pheromones. "Look at me." Look. The darkness surged, crashing against Jenna like a wave, pulling her deeper into its depths. She stumbled. The knife slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor as shadows danced hungrily around her. Black tendrils lunged, snaking around her ankles, tugging her toward the figure. Jenna's scream echoed in her throat, an instinctual cry for life, for the safety of her children. But their eyes remained distant, satisfied in the maniacal glee of the shadow's influence. A swell of despair buried her heart. What if this was it? What if they were lost forever in this unholy playhouse? With a sudden surge of hope, Jenna pushed against the darkness, summoning the last of her strength. "This ends now," she roared, defiance igniting in her core. "You can't have them." But the entity only laughed, a wheezing sound that sent shivers down her back. "You're not strong enough, little dove. They are ours now." Jenna staggered, claws of fear gripping her throat. Then she noticed a flicker of light beyond the doorway, the living room spilling warmth. It felt like a lure, a pulse urging her away from the encroaching horror. "Kids, we can fight this together." She turned to face them, desperate determination igniting in her eyes. But even as she spoke, she felt the shadows tighten, a remorseless grip squeezing the very life from her. Join us, the chant grew louder, vibrating through her bones. The children's faces twisted in dismay and delight, both so childlike and alien. Panicking, Jenna lunged for the flickering light. She would not let them go. But the shadowy figure reached out, a hand opening wide, prepared to seize not just her, but the last remnants of her family. And then it hit her. "You're afraid. You're afraid of the light." Suddenly the shadow faltered, swelling but shrinking back. But would she be fast enough? Could she truly break the hold it had over her children? As she raced toward the radiance, the darkness hissed and slashed, a last desperate attempt to stop her. The children's voices intertwined, swirling. Yet Jenna tore forward, ready to reclaim what was lost. But just as she reached the threshold, the figure lunged, sending everything spiraling into darkness. Did she choose the right path, or had she sealed their fate forever? Jenna's world shattered into chaos, swirling blackness engulfing her as she was snatched away from the light. Panic coursed through her veins, a hot pulse that urged her to fight. She screamed, the sound strangled as if the very darkness was clutching her throat, silencing her. Heart racing, Jenna found herself falling, deeper into a void that whispered and mocked, dragging her further from her children. Frantically, she clawed at the air, desperate for some semblance of ground beneath her feet. But the shadows only tightened their grip. "Mommy, help!" Sam's voice echoed, distant and distorted, like a radio losing signal. The betrayal twisted in her gut, realizing how close he was to being lost forever. "Hold on, just hold on," she screamed, stretching her fingers out, feeling a desperate need to reach him, but there was no air, no light, just the oppressive weight of shadows that pressed her down. Then she felt the cold of a hand in hers, a small, familiar hand. "Mommy, don't let go," Lily cried, her voice as fragile as glass. Jenna focused, pulling the child closer, every ounce of her being latching onto that tender connection. But even as she held Lily tightly, a darker laugh reverberated in the depths, taunting her. "You think this will save you? She'll never be whole again." An unnatural cold settled in, leaching warmth from Jenna's heart as the shadows began to warp once more. She couldn't stay. She had to escape, channeling every bit of remaining strength. She tore her gaze from the abyss and glanced back toward where she last remembered the flickering light. "Come on, hold on tight," Jenna shouted as she started to pull Lily with her, trying to remember how she had found the courage to reach for the light. Suddenly, she felt the darkness shudder, almost as if it was alive, responding to her defiance. The sinister whispers grew louder, enveloping her, each word spitting venom. "You cannot escape. The light will burn you." Jenna's stomach churned as doubts seeped into her consciousness. What if it was true? What if the light meant pain and not safety? What if no? She yelled, forcing herself to shove down the doubts. "We will fight." With a powerful jolt, she plunged toward the distant ember of brightness. The shadows roared, claws lunging, but Jenna pushed forward, screaming to her children, "I love you. Hold on." In that moment, an electric charge ignited within her. She could feel the shadows recoil, as if they were afraid of her unrelenting love. The beam before her stretched into a golden tunnel, pulsating with warmth, inviting her to break through. However, just when she thought they might make it, something dark and cold shot up from below, a gust of icy dread. It encircled her feet like chains, tightening fiercely, pulling her back into the depths. Panic surged, and she kicked violently against the pull. "Mommy!" screamed a chorus of voices, her children and distorted echoes of the dark entity. Jenna's breath hitched. Was she losing them again? Was she failing to protect her family? "I won't let you take them," she shouted, wrenching her heart open wide. In that moment, a surge of light burst forth, blinding and alive, wrapping her in its embrace. Colors exploded around her as she fell into the brightness, shattering the shadows that clawed at her sanity. But just as her grip on hope began to feel real, the light flickered violently. A face appeared within, twisted and dark, synonymous with the shadow. The last thing Jenna saw was the manic smile stretching wide. Before the light consumed her entirely, a final, wrenching gasp escaping her lips. The void of silence followed, heavy and oppressive. Then, she opened her eyes, back in the familiar living room, the shadows gone. Yet the dread settled like lead in her heart. She gasped for breath, scanning the room, seeking the familiar sounds of her kids playing. But there was nothing but eerie quiet. "Sam! Lily!" Jenna cried out, a new fear gripping her, stronger than before. But only silence answered her. Where were they? Had the darkness taken them for good? An icy grip twisted around her heart as she realized the truth. Could she trust the light that had saved her? Or, like the figure lurking just outside her vision, was it also waiting, eager for the moment she faltered? Terror settled like a storm cloud. Jenna took a step forward, her gut twisting. She had to find them, but what she might discover in the shadows only deepened the uncertain chill within her. What if the darkness was just waiting for her to take that next step? The air felt thick, heavy with an unshakable dread, as Jenna took another shaky step into the empty living room. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering in the dim light, making everything feel unreal, ghostly. "Please, where are you?" she breathed, her voice quivering, lost in the oppressive silence that enveloped her. The familiar home she loved now felt foreign. A shell of happy memories turned into a haunting echo. She staggered toward the staircase, each step feeling like a challenge, her heart pounding a wild rhythm. "Sam! Lily!" she called again, desperation spilling from her lips. The words felt useless, swallowed by the gloomy space around her. As she climbed the stairs, memories played tricks on her mind, echoes of laughter, playful shouts, the warm embrace of family gatherings. The joy felt like a cruel reminder of what she had, and what might now be lost. The hallway stretched before her, dark and foreboding. One door sat ajar at the end, Lily's room. Jenna hesitated, her heart hammering in her chest. What if she found them? What if she found something else? She took a deep breath, steeling herself before rushing toward the door. Creaked as she pushed it open. Inside, the room looked untouched. The bed was made, stuffed animals lined the shelves. There was something wrong, an emptiness that gnawed at her. Felt like a tomb, suffocating and still. "Lily?" Jenna whispered, her voice barely a murmur. Silence answered. Turning, she caught a flicker out of the corner of her eye, movement in the hallway. A shadow darted past, swift and dark. Jenna's heart leaped. "Sam!" she shouted, racing out of the room, desperate. The hall was empty, eerily still. But the whisper came again, like a breath against her ear. "Help, who's there?" she gasped, backing up, heart racing. No answer, just that creeping cold crawling up her spine. The air thickened, pressing against her, suffocating, dragging her toward the stairs. Jenna stumbled back, eyes wide, her instincts screaming for her to run. But she couldn't. They wouldn't leave her. She couldn't leave them. Footsteps echoed overhead, heavy, dragging, slow. A chill swept through her, freezing her in place. Thoughts raced. Was it the darkness coming for her? Was it something worse? "Mommy!" A small, terrified voice called from somewhere upstairs. Her heart soared. "Sam, hold on. I'm coming," she yelled, charging up the stairs, ignoring the tremor in her legs. But as she reached the landing, a cold breeze swept past her, whispering secrets in a language she couldn't understand. She halted, glancing back, a cold sweat forming on her brow. The corridor closed in, shadows threatening to swallow her whole if she lingered. "Don't look back," she murmured to herself, pushing forward. One foot in front of the other, just find him. The last door stood closed. Jenna hesitated, an icy claw gripping her heart. "Sam?" She pressed her palm against the wood, feeling its pulse beneath her fingers, almost like a heartbeat. Then she swung it open. Her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a dark void, completely empty. No toys, no bed, just an endless blackness that seemed to suck away every bit of light. "Sam!" Panic surged within her, frightening and alive. She stepped inside, searching frantically. The door slammed shut behind her, plunging her into darkness. "Mommy!" Sam's voice came again, clearer, sounding closer, but it felt like a cruel taunt, echoing from a distance. "Where are you?" she cried out, desperation building, a knot of fear tightening in her stomach. Suddenly, a laughter bubbled up from the shadows, a low, chilling sound, twisted with malice. Jenna froze, terror clutching her throat. The laughter morphed into a growl, echoing through the void, sending icy chills cascading over her skin. Jenna turned to run, but the air thickened around her. The darkness seemed alive, pulsating, hungry. She felt eyes watching her, cold and cruel. "Mommy!" The voice called again, this time more distant, fading as she struggled against the engulfing shadows. She screamed, sprinting back toward the door, yet it remained firmly shut, a barrier imprisoning her within. No, she would not be trapped here. Never. Gathering every ounce of strength, Jenna shouted, "You will not take my children. They are mine." In that moment, a bright flash ignited the room, blinding her. It opened a path she didn't dare trust. But it was hope, a spark amid the dread. With renewed purpose, Jenna lunged toward the light, determined to break through the darkness. Fear transformed into a fuel that shoved her forward. But as she reached for freedom, a hand gripped her ankle, pulling her back. "Mommy!" Sam's voice echoed again, desperation layered upon it. "I'm coming." Jenna cried out, battling the grip of shadowy fingers, clawing for the light. The tug from behind felt like a betrayal, dragging her into the abyss again. What awaited her on the other side? Would she lose them all to the claws of darkness, or find a way back into the light? The answer lingered just out of reach as she fought against the pull, trembling with doubt. What if the very thing pulling her down would reveal a horrific truth? The light flickered, a heartbeat suspended in time, illuminating the contours of Jenna's panic-stricken face. She swore she could feel the darkness clawing at her mind, whispering twisted lies, feeding her fear. The grip around her ankle tightened, pulling her downward. A stealthy hand of shadow, a creature from the depths, hungry and patient. "Please, no," Jenna wailed, her voice raw, striking against the void. With sheer will, she jerked her foot, throwing her weight toward the light. It pulsed, promising escape, a refuge from the oppressive gloom. Hope urged her forward, but the grip was merciless, unyielding, forcefully reminding her of the stakes. "Mommy, help me." Sam's voice echoed again, swirling around her like a phantom cry. The sound split her heart, wrenching it even further into despair. How much longer could she hold on? Jenna squeezed her eyes shut against the encroaching darkness, her heart pounding in a frantic race against time. Memories flickered through her mind, images of Sam's laughter, Lily's smile, warm summer days spent with loved ones. They couldn't be gone. She wouldn't let them be taken. Channeling every ounce of strength, she tore at the shadows below her, a primal instinct to survive clawing up from within. "Let go." She stumbled over the words, pulling them from the depths of her fear. With a sudden surge of determination, she shouted the words again, louder this time, like a rallying cry. "You will not take my children." The darkness shivered, the grip slackening momentarily. An icy breath rushed over her, causing her skin to crawl. But it was enough. She dashed toward the light, breaking free from that suffocating hold, throwing herself into the blinding warmth. Jenna landed hard, tumbling into a lush green meadow, the sunlight spilling around her. Groans of confusion tumbled from her lips as she rolled to her feet, looking frantically around. It was surreal, as though she had stepped out of a nightmare into a dream. Birds chirped, and a gentle breeze caressed her face. Yet something in her gut twisted with unease. "Sam? Lily?" She cried again, her voice trembling, the warmth of the sun failing to ease the chill knotting her stomach. The meadow felt too still, deceptively serene. She de-escaped, but where were they? The laughter and chaos of her children felt like distant echoes now. The grass beneath her feet felt like a forgotten memory as she stumbled through the expanse, heart hammering, intuition screaming that she was not alone. Then a chill slithered down her back. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, lurking at the temple of this vibrant utopia. She turned, searching, dread pooling in her veins. A figure stood among the trees, indistinct, shrouded in darkness that stretched out as if kneading the sunlight into shadow. "Mommy?" The voice was small, frightened, but it wasn't Sam or Lily. It was a distorted echo, twisted with uncertainty. Jenna's breath caught, anxiety ballooning as she gripped her chest. "Who are you?" she called out, though every fiber of her being screamed at her to run. "Mommy, it wasn't real. Couldn't be." Panic clawed at her throat as she advanced cautiously, every step weighed down by a mix of trepidation and a flicker of hope. What if it was one of them? What if it was a cruel trick? As she drew closer, the figure morphed, its features slipping in and out like mist. Desperation plunged into her heart. What was it? What did it want? The haunting voice washed over her, echoing like an empty promise, twisting her sanity. And then she noticed the trees behind the figure twisted unnaturally, their bark gnarled and blackened, dripping in inky liquid that pooled at their roots. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of decay. "Mommy," it beckoned again, this time morphing into multiple voices, surrounding her. Varied, familiar, yet wrong. "Where are my kids?" she screamed, frustration spilling over. "What do you want from me?" "Stay with us." The shadows flickered, swirling into inky tendrils that reached toward her. Jenna's heart raced as the malevolent whispers closed in, clawing at her resolve. Just when she thought she might drown in despair, a piercing light exploded from the depths of the forest, cutting through the shadows like a knife through fog. "Run!" A voice thundered above the chaos. Jenna turned to see a figure emerging from the brightness, an unmistakable silhouette, her husband, Sam. His eyes blazed with urgency. "Get away from them!" he roared, charging toward the dark mass. Caught between two worlds, her family and whatever haunted this place, Jenna stood frozen, terror wrapping itself around her. The choice loomed large, suffocating her in dread. Would she accompany him into the light, trusting the safety of unity? Or would she plunge deeper into the darkness, desperate to return to her children, wherever they lay? The shadows twisted, awaiting her decision, darker than ever, thrumming with anticipation. With her heart caught between two colliding forces, Jenna's silence stretched thin, as the ground beneath her began to tremble. What would she choose? The light or the abyss? The choices weighed heavy like an anchor dragging her down. And as the shadows shifted, a chilling phrase drifted through the air, echoing her own fears. All paths lead to the unknown. The blinding brightness enveloped Sam as he rushed to Jenna's side, his form becoming clearer with each step he took toward her. But as he drew closer, the shadows around them pulsed violently, reluctant to let go of their prize. Jenna fought against the instinct to run to him, to skip the despair and embrace the hope that radiated from his presence. "Jenna, take my hand." Sam's voice cut through the chaos, a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. But before she could respond, the dark mass surged forward, tendrils of darkness lashing out with ferocity. They curled around Sam, slipping through his fingers like smoke. "No!" Jenna screamed, extending her hand desperately. The shadows hissed, a symphony of disdain. "You will join us," they whispered, voices overlapping, echoing through twisted memories. "We'll keep your children safe." Forever panic surged in Jenna, choking her. "Let him go!" she roared, rage igniting a fire deep inside her. That flicker of strength pulled her back from the brink, and she felt the warmth of the sun beckoning her toward the light. Jenna's gaze darted between Sam and the encroaching darkness. "Just hold on. I'm coming." She launched herself toward him, but the shadows quickened, stretching out with a ravenous hunger, seeking to entrap her. Then, just like that, everything shifted. A writhing mass surged from the trees, a grotesque form that merged with night itself. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, glistening like shards of broken glass, void of reason. Jenna's world shrank to a singular focus, to reach Sam. Before she could grasp his outstretched hand, the creature lunged with breathless speed, colliding between them. Jenna's heart raced, chilling dread plummeting through her veins. Sam stumbled back, momentarily caught off guard as the dark figure surged forward, its claws glinting menacingly. She was taken aback by its form, as the silky darkness became defined a twisted mockery of a familiar face. A creature that both looked like Sam and yet wasn't him, a horrific distortion of everything she loved. "Join us," it whispered, bending closer, its cold breath wafting into her face, rancid and sweet like buried things. Jenna's stomach turned. "Sam!" she cried, but the words barely reached him over the suffocating sound of shadows clasping around them. She had to choose. Her insides twisted painfully. In one fleeting moment, Jenna felt her heart crack open, fragments of hope and despair spilling out in equal measures. "I will fight back," she shouted defiantly. "You will not take him." The shadows recoiled, as if her words burned. But their grip around Sam tightened, pulling him further into the abyss. "This is your final chance," they hissed, their voices becoming tainted with malice. "Surrender or lose everything." Inside, Jenna felt a crack in her resolve. What if she lost him forever? The question clawed at her sanity, pressing against her mind with relentless force. "Choose," Sam shouted through gritted teeth, pain lacing his voice. "Choose now." Every nerve racked with tension, Jenna felt the ground shake as she summoned her strength. She had to break through, drawing upon every ounce of love, She focused on the light behind her, a beacon of warmth despite the horror. "Sam," she cried, voice shaking. "I won't leave you. We'll fight together." With all the love and fury she had left, Jenna lunged forward, plunging ahead to snatch Sam's hand just as darkness enveloped the space around them. But in the instant of contact, the world around them warped, a cacophony of thrumming shadows swirling chaotically. The shadows took form, large and looming, twisting deeper into a malevolent outline that spoke even as it shrieked. "You'll never escape." It was then that Jenna's realization hit her, a truth laced with terror. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for the promises they made to their children, their very essence hanging in the balance. The world around them began to spin, the light fizzling and flickering. Jenna clutched Sam's hand tight, panic mixing with determination. Would they defy destiny, or would the darkness pull them under into a nightmare of eternal despair? The shadows flickered in anticipation, waiting patiently, like a predator stalking its prey. And then the ground beneath them cracked open, revealing an endless chasm of darkness. "Sam!" The scream tore from her throat as she felt the pull of the void beneath them. What lay ahead was an unknown horror, a decision that could unravel everything. Would they leap into the chasm together, or fight the darkness? In her heart, Jenna realized all paths were pointing toward the unknown. The void yawned wide beneath them, a dark abyss promising to swallow them whole. Jenna's heart raced, pounding hard against her ribcage. Will we fall? With Sam beside her, the dread turned into raw terror, forcing every breath into shallow gasps. "Hold on." Sam's hand tightened around hers, squeezing with desperate urgency. "We have to." But before he could finish, the shadows surged violently, entwining like serpents, pulling at them, tugging at their very essence. The ground trembled, shaking beneath their feet, as if the abyss itself was alive. Jenna fought against the pull. For a flicker of a moment, surges of energy coursed through her, memories of laughter, her children's faces, the warmth of home flooding her mind. "We need to fight," she shouted, almost losing herself in the cacophony of anguish and despair. "Fight what?" Sam yelled back, struggling against the grips of the dark. "They are us. We can't win this. They know everything." "No." The words ripped from her throat, a howl of defiance. "I won't believe that." With a fierce determination, Jenna took a step forward, toward the unknowable darkness. The shadows retaliated, flinging themselves at her like icy whips. She stumbled, pain shooting through her, sharp as a knife, but she pressed on. "We can't succumb to their lies. We won't." The being standing before them, the Sam copy, twisted and writhed, its features knotting into grotesque forms that flickered and shifted like a faulty TV screen. "You think love is enough against us?" Taunted, a voice dripping with hatred. "We were born from your fears. You can't escape what you truly are." Cold dread tinged with fury washed over Jenna. "No, love isn't weak," she shouted, the conviction ringing through her. "It's our strength." "Strength?" The creature laughed, a sound that chilled her bones. "How will your love save you when every one of your memories is just as twisted? You'll be lost to despair." The ground trembled once more, and the chasm seemed to roar in response, drawing them closer to the edge. Sam's face paled as the darkness coiled tighter around him. Fear swam in his eyes. "Jenna, we fight," she screamed again, shoving her fear aside. Her heart raced, edging past hopelessness, toward blinding fury. Together. Just then, in the periphery, flashes of light burst through the shadows. It pulsed, brightening the surrounding darkness like distant stars lighting up a black sky. Jenna could feel their warmth washing over her. "The children," she gasped, remembering the promises made in moonlit whispers, the laughter over bedtime stories. With that thought anchored in her heart, she felt a sudden surge of courage. "We're not alone," Jenna yelled, the intensity of her voice surprising herself. "We will fight. We will not let your darkness drown our love." The darkness hesitated. The shadows wavered, falling back for a brief moment. Jenna seized the opportunity. She yanked Sam closer, their fingers intertwining fiercely. "Come on. We can break through." But as they stood united, the dark mass roared, its fury erupting in a chaotic storm of shadows. "You think mere emotion can overcome the void? Did you not listen? You are part of this." In that moment, the very ground quaked violently, ripping apart, a deep chasm opening wide between them and the awaiting darkness. A rift, gnawed by fear, clawing at the edges of reality. But Jenna held on, screaming against the howling tempest. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, she saw flickers of familiar faces. Their children, reaching out from the other side, where the light seemed to pulse brighter. They were there. "Jenna!" Sam cried, eyes wide. Dread sank deep into her chest again. Could they leap into the light, or would the chasm swallow them first? Was this warmth merely an illusion? Sam's voice trembled, gripped with fear. The darkness shrieked in wrath, reaching for them anew. It felt like a countdown to oblivion. Time stilled around them. The fissures deepened beneath their feet. What was beyond? As shadows consumed the last of the light, the air thickened. Would the bright faces of their children guide them out of the abyss? Or would they be lost forever in the chill of despair? And then Jenna realized, choices were no longer theirs alone. "Jump!" she screamed, just as a deep darkness closed in around them, threatening to consume everything. Would they leap into that blinding light, or succumb to the familiar chill of the void? Still battling against the storm of nothingness, silence fell. Their decision hung precariously in the balance. Jenna felt the tremors of fear grip her as she stared into the depths of the chasm. It was almost inviting. The abyss promised release but withheld deliverance. She felt Sam's hand in hers, warm yet trembling, bound by love, yet dangerously close to despair. "Jump!" she shouted, the command reverberating through her, igniting the tiniest flicker of hope that had somehow managed to survive the darkness. But even as she spoke, uncertainty danced in her mind. Was it truly the light, or was it merely a glimmer of the threat awaiting them? Without a second thought, Jenna turned her gaze to the flickers of light, the familiar shapes of her children stretching out like arms yearning for her. "We can't let their darkness win, Sam. We can't." Sam nodded, his grip tightening around her hand, anchoring her against the turmoil swirling beneath them. "On three," he cried, determination spiking in his voice. 1, 2. The shadows roared, a primal scream filled with anger, rejecting their will to escape, the whispers crescendoing in a dissonant chorus of despair filling the air with its malevolence. But this time, their onslaught wasn't enough to drown out the rhythm of Jenna's heart, beating against the suffocating silence. This was their chance. 3. In that breathless moment, they leapt, arms outstretched toward the radiant promise of light, a beacon pulling them away from the darkness trying to swallow them whole. The world around them blurred. The chasm yawned like an ancient monster, and Jenna felt a rush of wind sweep them upward as the warmth enveloped them. The shadows shrieked in fury behind them, a cacophonous wail of lost power and fury. But Jenna didn't look back. The light was pure, bright as 1,000 suns shining down from the heavens, washing away the remnants of their fear. Hope flooded her veins, filling the cracks of despair with light. As they fell into that luminous embrace, Jenna found herself surrounded by warmth and love, the kind that wrapped around her like the happiest of memories. And then she found them. Lily, Sam, and Max were standing there, their faces illuminated with joy, their laughter filling her ears like sweet music. Jenna felt buoyed, overwhelmed by love and relief. "You're here. You're safe," she exclaimed, pulling them into her arms. Their bodies felt solid, warm, and so very real. "Mommy!" Sam squealed, burrowing into her side as Lily wrapped her arms around both of them, and little Max giggled, pulling at the hem of her shirt. Tears streamed down Jenna's cheeks as the shadows retreated, smoke dissipating into the air like the remnants of a fading nightmare. She held her children tight, feeling them breathe against her, a heartbeat that reminded her of everything she had fought for. "We did it," Sam beamed, eyes wide with astonishment. Jenna looked around, searching for the threat that had pursued them so relentlessly. But the abyss had faded, the darkness transformed into soft shadows, mere whispers of what had threatened to consume them. All around them was a lush meadow, sunlight streaming down in golden rays as laughter filled the air. It was peace. It was home. As they stood together, Jenna felt something shift inside her. The shadows, once heavy in her mind, began to lighten, leaving behind only remnants of their haunting, fading like echoes in a vast space. "Everything will be all right," she whispered, as her children looked up at her, eyes filled with belief and trust. And even as a familiar laughter tore through the air, this time it sounded joyful, a chime that resonated with the love they shared. Jenna felt a pulse of heat echo in her heart, a reminder that love, pure, steadfast love, could conquer even the darkest depths. Jenna took a deep breath. Her family gathered around her. They stood as a unit, intact and strong. Whatever horrors they had faced, they had emerged brighter. "Together," she said, anchoring her voice with certainty, "we face the future. Together." With her family beside her, Jenna stepped forward into their new beginning, leaving the shadows behind. The warmth of life surrounded them, pulsing with infinite possibilities. The journey to peace may have been challenging, but finally, they were home. As they walked into the radiant sun, Jenna whispered to the light above, "May we never forget." And in her heart, Jenna knew, as long as they wore love like armor, no darkness would ever claim them again. Now, if you loved experiencing this story as much as I loved sharing it, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It makes a difference. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Let's build a community that thrives on story and connection.